All right, so welcome to our deep dive into World War One.
Yeah.
We're going to be taking a look at The Great War by Rugar.
Okay.
Um, really kind of trying to unpack all the different factors
Yeah.
that led to this massive global conflict that really reshaped the 20th century.
Uh-huh.
And, it's amazing how much the world of 1914, over 100 years ago, really mirrors a lot of the anxieties that we're seeing in the world today.
It's incredible how relevant World War One feels even today,
Right.
A century later, we're seeing a resurgence of nationalism, geopolitical tensions, simmering all over the place, and,
Yeah.
and rapid technological advancements that are,
Yeah.
changing everything.
It's like we're looking into a distorted mirror
Yeah,
and seeing our present anxieties reflected back at us.
it really is.
So Rugar kind of starts by painting this picture of Europe in the decades leading up to the war.
Okay.
And this period is often referred to as the Pax Britannica,
Right,
which is Latin for British peace.
right.
It sounds peaceful, but tensions were brewing under the surface.
Oh, absolutely.
Britain, after defeating Napoleon, was trying to maintain a balance of power in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a very delicate dance.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating is how this era of relative peace was also a period of intense competition.
Right.
You have the Industrial Revolution in full swing.
Yeah.
European powers are scrambling for resources, new markets.
Right.
They need colonies to feed those markets.
Yeah.
So they carved up Africa and Asia, creating these vast empires that literally span the globe.
And to protect those empires, they forged these complex webs of alliances, promising to defend each other in case of attack.
Right.
It's like this high-stakes game of chess,
Exactly.
with each move having these unintended consequences.
Right, and if you look at a map of the world in 1914, it's staggering.
Yeah.
84% of the Earth's surface was under the control of European empires.
It's wild.
It's mind-boggling, and that dominance wasn't just military. It was
Yeah.
economic and technological as well.
Right? They controlled the seas, the trade
They
routes.
controlled the flow of information. The
Yeah.
telegraph, allowed them to communicate almost instantly across vast distances.
But it's not just about empires and alliances.
No.
Rugar also dives into how this idea of nationalism starts to take hold,
Yeah.
fueled by events like the French Revolution,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
People began to identify more strongly with their nation,
Mm-hmm.
their shared language and culture,
Right.
rather than with their rulers.
And that's where it gets really complicated because these newly formed nation states often clashed with the existing empires.
Absolutely.
You see this most clearly in the Balkans, a region just teeming with different ethnicities and national aspirations.
Right.
You have Serbia, fueled by this nationalist fervor, dreaming of uniting the South Slavs,
Yeah.
many of whom were living under Austro-Hungarian rule.
So you've got these rising nationalistic tensions,
Uh-huh.
empires vying for power,
Yes.
and then you throw in the rapid technological advancements of the Industrial Revolution.
It's a recipe for disaster.
It is.
I mean, just the invention of the machine gun alone
Oh, yeah.
completely changes the nature of warfare.
Right.
It made killing more efficient, more impersonal,
Yeah.
and far, far more devastating.
It's hard to even comprehend.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about firepower.
No.
You have new communication technologies like the telegraph
Right.
that allowed for faster mobilization and coordination of armies.
Exactly. It's like the world was speeding up, becoming more interconnected,
Yeah.
but also more volatile.
Much more volatile, and Rugar uses this term British jingoism,
Oh, yeah.
which is basically this extreme, almost aggressive patriotism.
Right.
And they were really worried about Germany's growing power
Mm-hmm.
and their own position on the world stage.
It's this deep insecurity
Yeah.
that leads to an arms race, especially naval power.
Yeah.
You have the Dreadnought, this revolutionary new type of battleship built by Britain
Right.
that triggers this intense competition with Germany.
Yeah.
They're trying to outdo each other, build bigger and more powerful warships.
They're like everyone is trying to outdo each other.
Yeah.
Stockpiling weapons, preparing for a war. That-
nobody really wants,
Yeah.
but that everyone seems to think is inevitable.
Right. And it's this tangled web of alliances,
Yeah.
ambitions, and anxieties
Mhm.
that sets the stage for the events of 1914
Yeah.
and the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand,
Right.
heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne.
The spark that ignites the powder keg?
It is. And the assassination itself
It really is.
is like something out of a thriller.
It's incredible.
This series of mishaps, wrong turns, miscommunications,
Mhm.
all culminating in this one event that would change the course of history.
It's unbelievable.
And it all happens in Sarajevo, June 28, 1914.
Right.
Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie are on this goodwill tour.
Yeah.
And there's this failed bombing attempt.
Yeah.
Then, as their car takes a wrong turn, they end up right in front of Gavrilo Princip, this young Serbian nationalist who's part of a group called the Black Hand.
Yeah.
And in that moment of chaos,
Yeah.
Princip seizes his chance and fires the shots.
Wow.
That would plunge the world into war.
It's hard to believe that one person could have such an impact.
I know. And what's even more striking is the reaction of Emperor Franz Joseph,
Oh, yeah.
Franz Ferdinand's uncle.
Yeah.
Instead of being consumed by grief, he was reportedly relieved.
Literally.
Relieved.
Why?
Well, because Franz Ferdinand was seen as a reformer,
Oh, I see.
someone who might have challenged the very structure of the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Interesting.
His death removed a potential threat to the established order.
Wow.
It's almost Shakespearean,
It is.
this sense of unintended consequences,
Yeah.
of fate playing its hand.
It's like something out of a Greek tragedy.
It really is.
Yeah.
But the assassination was just the beginning.
Right.
What followed was a diplomatic crisis
Yeah.
that would quickly escalate into a full-blown war.
Right.
So, Austria-Hungary, seeing the assassination as a direct attack orchestrated by Serbia,
Yeah.
issued an ultimatum demanding impossible concessions.
Okay.
And Germany, bound by its alliance to Austria-Hungary,
Mm-hmm.
issued a blank check,
Wow.
essentially giving them unconditional support.
That's a risky gamble.
It was a huge gamble,
Yeah.
a miscalculation that would have catastrophic consequences.
It's amazing how quickly things spiraled out of control.
Yeah, so the blank check emboldened Austria-Hungary to take a hard line.
Right.
They declare war on Serbia on July 28, 1914,
Okay.
exactly 1 month after the assassination,
Wow.
and then the dominoes start to fall.
Yeah.
Russia, bound by its alliance to Serbia,
Right.
begins to mobilize its massive army.
Oh, boy.
Germany sees Russia's mobilization as a direct threat.
Of course.
They have their own war plans,
Yeah.
the Schlieffen Plan,
Right.
which called for a swift knockout blow against France
Mm-hmm.
before turning to face Russia.
So they had to act fast.
Yeah, they believed any delay would be disastrous.
Wow. So you've got this frantic exchange of telegrams.
Oh, yeah.
Frantic attempts at diplomacy.
Tsar Nicholas II of Russia and Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany are even exchanging personal telegrams,
Really? Trying to find a way out of this crisis?
trying to avert disaster, but the pressure from their military advisors,
Yeah.
the weight of those alliances,
Mm-hmm.
the momentum that has been building for years,
Yeah.
it was all too much.
Like a runaway train.
It is. And on August 1st, Germany declares war on Russia,
Wow.
and on August 3rd, they declare war on France.
So just like that, Europe is at war.
Just like that.
What started as a regional conflict in the Balkans
Yeah.
has exploded into a global conflagration.
And what's so tragic is that most people at the time had no idea what they were getting into.
No, they didn't.
They thought it would be a short, glorious war.
Right over by Christmas?
Over by Christmas.
They were wrong.
They were so wrong.
World War I would drag on for 4 long years, consuming millions of lives and leaving a legacy of trauma and destruction that would shape the 20th century and beyond.
And that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore the horrors of trench warfare on the Western Front,
Right.
the vast battles on the Eastern Front,
Mm-hmm.
and the global reach of this conflict that drew in nations from every corner of the world.
It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
I can't wait.
All right, so we'll see you in part 2.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into World War I.
Last time, we left off with Europe on the brink of war.
Yeah, all those alliances and that assassination.
Right, all those tensions just boiling over.
So now we're going to dive into the actual fighting.
Yeah, the brutal reality of World War I.
This war that would shatter illusions of glory and really redefine warfare forever.
It's hard to imagine the shock when
Mhm.
those early offensives collided with the reality of modern weaponry.
Right.
What was supposed to be this swift, decisive war
Right.
quickly devolved into this bloody stalemate.
Especially on the Western Front.
Exactly.
Rugaard describes this initial wave of enthusiasm,
Yeah.
particularly among the French.
Uh-huh.
They marched off to war with bands playing and flags waving,
Right.
expecting a quick victory.
A lot of naive optimism.
Yeah, and he even quotes one French soldier,
Okay.
Eugene Louis Pustis,
Okay.
who wrote about the crowds cheering, the sense of patriotic fervor.
Yeah.
It's really heartbreaking knowing what awaited them.
Oh, yeah.
That naive optimism was shattered within weeks.
Absolutely.
The Germans, following their Schlieffen Plan,
Right.
swept through Belgium and into northern France.
Right.
The French and British armies fought back fiercely.
Yeah.
But the sheer firepower of the German army was devastating.
Especially their artillery and machine guns.
The machine gun really transformed the battlefield.
Absolutely.
It could mow down waves of attacking soldiers,
Yeah.
making traditional charges suicidal.
It's no wonder this war became synonymous with trench warfare.
Yeah, why even bother?
Right.
By the end of 1914,
Yeah.
both sides were dug in along this line of trenches that stretched for hundreds of miles.
Yeah. Across France and Belgium.
These trenches became a nightmarish world of mud
Rats, disease.
and the constant threat of death.
It was a living hell.
It's hard to even imagine.
It is.
And Ruger does a great job of bringing those horrors to life
How so?
through first-hand accounts.
Right.
He quotes from soldiers' letters and diaries.
Oh, wow.
Like those of Roland Leighton, a young British officer. Leighton described the trenches as a place of utter desolation, where the stench of death just hung heavy in the air.
Oh, that's awful.
And it wasn't just physical hardships.
Yeah.
The psychological toll was immense.
Of course.
Imagine enduring relentless shelling,
Yeah.
witnessing the deaths of countless comrades,
Oh.
living with the constant fear of snipers,
Gas attacks.
sudden death.
It's enough to drive anyone mad.
The Battle of the Somme,
Yeah.
which began in July 1916,
Okay.
is a chilling example of the futility of trench warfare.
What happened?
On the first day alone,
Yeah.
the British suffered nearly 60,000 casualties,
Wow.
making it the bloodiest day in British military history.
It's hard to even fathom that kind of loss.
The Somme became a symbol of the war's brutality
Yeah.
and the failure of traditional military tactics
Yeah.
in the face of modern weaponry.
It's a stark reminder that technological innovation
Right.
without ethical considerations
Yeah,
can lead to unimaginable suffering.
that's a good point.
So we've been talking about the Western Front,
Right.
but the Eastern Front was a different kind of beast altogether.
Yeah, while trench warfare raged in France and Belgium,
Mm-hmm.
the Eastern Front was characterized by more fluid warfare.
Right, spanning these vast distances from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, more
Wow.
open terrain,
Right.
larger armies,
Yeah.
making those static trench lines almost impossible to maintain.
Right. It was just a different kind of fighting.
Absolutely.
And Ruger highlights the Battle of Tannenberg, a crushing German victory in August 1914.
Right.
But it wasn't just about military might.
No.
It was a story of strategic blunders
Okay.
and the crucial role of communications.
What do you mean?
Well, the Russians made fatal mistakes with their radio transmissions,
Oh, wow.
allowing the Germans to intercept their plans
Oh, no.
and launch this devastating counterattack.
That's a huge intelligence failure.
It was.
Wow.
The Russian defeat at Tannenberg had a devastating impact on their morale
Yeah.
and really set the stage for a series of setbacks.
Right.
It also exposed the weaknesses of the Tsarist regime.
Which was already struggling to cope with the demands of a modern war.
Exactly.
But it wasn't all one-sided. The
Oh.
Russians had their moments of triumph.
Yeah, like the Brusilov offensive in 1916.
Okay.
This brilliant military maneuver
Wow.
that inflicted heavy casualties on the Austro-Hungarian army
Really?
and nearly knocked them out of the war.
Wow, that's impressive.
It was.
So the Russians weren't pushovers.
No, they weren't.
They had moments of brilliance,
It did.
but ultimately they couldn't overcome the challenges they faced.
Right. And it's incredible how this war,
Yeah.
which began in Europe,
Yeah.
quickly spread across the globe.
Yeah. Drawing in nations from every continent.
It truly became a world war.
Absolutely. And Ruger really emphasizes that.
Yeah.
That World War I was truly a global conflict.
Yeah. Colonial troops from Africa, Asia, and the Pacific
Wow.
were drawn into the fighting.
Yeah. Often serving on the front lines,
Yeah.
facing immense hardship and discrimination.
The Gallipoli campaign, launched by the British in 1915,
Okay.
is a powerful example of the war's global reach.
What was the goal of that campaign?
The goal was to capture the Dardanelles Strait
Okay.
and knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war.
Ambitious.
It's
It
like
was.
that.
How did it go?
Not well.
Oh,
The Gallipoli campaign was a disaster from the start.
really?
Yeah, the landings were poorly planned,
Okay.
the terrain was treacherous,
Yeah.
and the Ottoman defenders, including units led by the future founder of modern Turkey,
Okay.
Mustafa Kemal Ataturk,
Okay.
fought with incredible tenacity.
Wow. So they really underestimated the Ottomans?
They did.
And what about the British and their allies?
Well, Ruger tells the story of the Anzac Sea troops.
Okay, the soldiers from Australia and New Zealand?
Right.
Yeah.
They played a crucial role in the campaign,
Yeah.
and they fought with incredible bravery
Yeah.
in the face of overwhelming odds.
It's amazing how these soldiers from such distant lands were drawn into this conflict.
And their sacrifices at Gallipoli became a defining moment in their national identities.
I can see how that would be the case.
Yeah. So the Gallipoli campaign, despite its ultimate failure,
Right.
had a profound impact.
Yeah.
It showed the resilience of the Ottoman Empire
Okay.
and fueled nationalist sentiment in Turkey.
Right.
It also highlighted the growing importance of colonial troops in the British war effort.
So while the Gallipoli campaign was unfolding, another disaster was brewing for the British Empire.
Right, in Mesopotamia, which is modern-day Iraq.
Oh, yeah.
The Mesopotamian campaign was driven by strategic ambitions
Right.
to secure oil resources
Right.
and protect British interests in the region.
Makes sense.
But like Gallipoli,
Uh-oh.
it was plagued by logistical challenges, poor planning,
Okay.
and a misunderstanding of the local conditions.
It sounds like they were repeating the same mistakes.
They were.
So what happened?
Well, the Siege of Kut in 1916 was a turning point in the Mesopotamian campaign.
Okay.
A British force, led by General Townsend,
Okay.
was trapped in the town of Kut
Okay.
by a larger Ottoman army.
Oh, boy.
The Siege of Kut became a symbol of British overreach
Okay.
and the challenges of fighting a war in this distant and unforgiving environment.
So what happened to the British troops?
They endured months of bombardment,
Oh, wow.
disease,
Wow.
dwindling supplies,
Oh.
before finally surrendering to the Ottomans.
Oh, that's awful.
The surrender at Kut was a humiliating defeat for the British,
Yeah.
and the subsequent treatment of the British and Indian prisoners of war
Yeah.
was horrific.
Oh, that's terrible.
Thousands died on forced marches and in captivity.
It's a reminder of the human cost of war,
Absolutely.
the suffering that extends far beyond the battlefields.
And while all this was happening on land,
Right.
a new kind of warfare was emerging at sea.
What was that?
Submarine warfare.
Oh, yeah, the U-boats.
Germany, facing a powerful British naval blockade, turned to their U-boats,
Right.
submarines capable of sinking merchant ships
Yeah.
and disrupting Allied supply lines.
It was a controversial tactic,
Yeah, well,
blurring the lines between military targets and civilian ships.
and the sinking of the Lusitania,
Oh, yeah.
a British passenger liner,
Right.
by a German U-boat in 1915,
All right.
was a turning point.
Wow.
Over 1,000 civilians were killed,
Wow.
including 128 Americans.
Oh.
And the Lusitania sinking outraged public opinion in the United States and really fueled anti-German sentiment.
It also highlighted the ethical dilemmas of submarine warfare.
Yeah.
The difficulty of distinguishing between combatants and non-combatants in this new kind of war.
Absolutely.
So the German U-boat campaign would eventually play a crucial role in bringing the United States into the war.
On the side of the Allies.
Right. But before we get to America's entry, we need to talk about the impact of World War I on the home front.
Yeah.
Because this was a total war.
It was.
A conflict that consumed not just armies,
Right.
but entire societies.
Governments mobilized their populations
Yeah.
using propaganda,
Censorship.
rationing,
Yeah.
to maintain support for the war effort.
And what about women?
Women were drawn into the workforce in unprecedented numbers,
Wow.
taking on jobs traditionally held by men.
So the war really transformed societies in profound ways.
They did.
Challenged traditional gender roles, accelerated industrial production,
Yeah.
led to the expansion of government power.
And Rugar emphasizes how the war also fueled social and political unrest.
Interesting.
Labor movements gained momentum,
Yeah.
and socialist parties, opposed to the war, grew in popularity.
So the war created this sense of disillusionment, this feeling that the old order was crumbling.
And nowhere was this more evident than in Russia,
Right.
where the strains of war would lead to revolution.
And that's where we'll pick up in part 3.
Yeah, we'll explore the Russian Revolution,
Right.
America's entry into the war,
Okay.
the final bloody battles of 1918,
Yeah.
and the uneasy peace that followed.
I can't wait.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Great War. We've been through a lot.
We
have the tangled web of alliances, the horrors of trench warfare, the global reach of this conflict.
It's been a journey.
It really has. And we ended last time in 1917 with Russia on the verge of revolution and America about to enter the war.
2 massive turning points.
Absolutely. So let's dive into the Russian Revolution first.
Right.
I mean, it's such a pivotal moment, not just for Russia, but for the entire world.
It really exposes the fragility of empires
Yeah.
and the explosive power of ideas.
And Rugar sets the scene so well.
Yeah.
Russia, already strained by years of war,
Yeah.
is facing mounting casualties, economic hardship, growing social unrest.
It's like a pressure cooker ready to explode.
Exactly. And Tsar Nicholas II, clinging to autocratic rule,
Yeah.
is increasingly out of touch with the suffering of his people.
A recipe for disaster.
And then in February 1917, it all comes crashing down.
What happens?
Those February protests, sparked by bread shortages,
Okay.
quickly escalate into a full-blown revolution.
Wow.
The Tsar is forced to abdicate, ending centuries of Romanov rule.
It's incredible how quickly things can change.
It is. It's a moment of incredible upheaval.
But the revolution didn't end there, right?
No. The provisional government that's formed after the Tsar's abdication
Yeah.
struggles to maintain control.
Why is that?
They're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place.
Okay.
They want to continue fighting the war alongside the Allies.
Yeah.
But the people are demanding peace, land, and bread.
So they're trying to appease both sides.
Yeah, and it's just not working.
And then into this chaos steps Vladimir Lenin.
Right, and the Bolsheviks.
A whole new force to contend with.
So Lenin, this revolutionary in exile, returns to Russia with a radical vision.
Okay, what is it?
A communist state.
Wow.
A dictatorship of the proletariat.
A complete transformation of society.
And he promises to end the war.
Okay.
Redistribute land to the peasants.
Right.
Give power to the workers.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
Yeah.
And it resonates with a population weary of war and desperate for change.
Of course.
In October 1917, the Bolsheviks seize power in a coup,
Wow.
ushering in a new era for Russia.
And sending shockwaves across the world.
So you've got this massive upheaval in Russia.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the Atlantic,
Right.
America is drawn into the war.
A game changer.
Absolutely.
But how did it happen? America was initially neutral, right?
They were. Woodrow Wilson, the American president,
Yeah.
tried to remain neutral, but a series of events kind of pushed them closer and closer to war.
Okay. Like what?
Well, the unrestricted submarine warfare campaign waged by Germany.
Oh, right. The U-boats.
Yeah, American ships are being sunk.
Yeah.
American lives are being lost.
Right.
Public opinion is turning against Germany.
And then there was the Zimmermann telegram.
Oh, yeah, what a blunder for Germany.
Can you remind us what happened?
So the Zimmermann telegram was a secret message sent by the German foreign minister
Okay.
to the Mexican government,
Okay.
proposing a military alliance against the United States.
Wow.
Germany promised to help Mexico reclaim territories
Yeah.
lost in the Mexican-American War
Right.
if Mexico would join them in the fight.
So they're trying to open up a new front,
Yeah, keep America distracted.
but it backfired. Right.
Big time. The British intercepted the telegram and leaked it to the American press.
Oh, no.
It caused a sensation, fueled outrage,
Yeah.
and pushed America closer to war.
And what about Wilson? He was an idealist, right?
He was, and he framed America's entry as a moral crusade,
Okay.
a fight to make the world safe for democracy.
Powerful rhetoric.
It was, and it helped to mobilize the American people.
And the war effort.
So in April 1917, America declares war on Germany.
A turning point.
Absolutely. The arrival of fresh American troops, along with their industrial might,
Yeah.
would eventually tip the scales in favor of the Allies.
But before victory, there would be more bloodshed.
A lot more.
1917 was a year of brutal attritional warfare.
Yeah, with battles like Passchendaele.
Oh, yeah.
A horrific slog through mud and blood that cost hundreds of thousands of lives.
The war was grinding everyone down.
It was. But in 1918,
Yeah.
Germany, sensing that time was running out,
Right.
launched a series of desperate offensives in the West.
One last gamble.
These spring offensives, as they're called,
Okay.
were a last-ditch effort to break through the Allied lines and win the war before American reinforcements arrived in force.
A bold move.
It was, and they almost succeeded.
Really?
Rugar describes the innovative tactics used by the Germans.
Okay, like what?
The stormtroopers,
Okay.
elite units trained for infiltration and shock attacks.
Oh, wow.
And the Feuervolts,
The what?
this rolling barrage of artillery fire
Oh, wow.
that overwhelmed the enemy defenses.
So they were throwing everything they had at it.
They were, and they made significant gains.
But they couldn't sustain it, could they?
No, they were overstretched, running low on supplies,
Yeah.
and facing increasingly determined Allied resistance.
And as those offensives stalled,
Yeah.
The Allies launched their counterattack.
Yeah, now under the unified command of French General Ferdinand Foch,
Okay.
they launch a series of counterattacks
Right.
that would turn the tide of war.
The 100 Days Offensive.
It was a relentless push that drove the Germans back,
Yeah.
liberated captured territory,
Yeah. Yeah.
and broke the stalemate that had defined the war for so long.
So the end was in sight.
It was by the fall of 1918, Germany was defeated,
Exhausted.
facing revolution at home.
Yeah.
The Kaiser abdicated,
Wow.
and a new government, led by the Social Democrats,
Yeah.
sued for peace.
And the war finally came to an end.
It did, on November 11th, 1918, at 11 a.m.
A date etched in history.
The armistice was signed, the guns fell silent.
And World War I was over.
It was a moment of relief, but also a moment of profound grief.
Of course, millions lay dead,
Empires had crumbled,
and the world was forever changed.
but the story doesn't end there.
No.
The Paris Peace Conference,
Right?
which convened in 1919,
Yeah.
was tasked with building a new world order from the ashes of the old.
A daunting task.
It was, and Rugar takes us inside the conference,
Okay.
where the victors,
Yeah.
led by the Big Three,
Okay, who are they?
Woodrow Wilson of the United States, David Lloyd George of Great Britain,
Okay.
and Georges Clemenceau of France, each came with their own agendas and ambitions.
So what were they hoping to achieve?
Well, Wilson, the idealist,
Yeah.
arrived with his 14 points.
Oh.
A vision for a just and lasting peace,
Yeah.
based on self-determination, open diplomacy,
Yeah.
and a league of nations to prevent future wars.
A noble goal.
But it was a vision that would clash with the realities of power politics.
So what happened?
Clemenceau, representing France,
Yeah.
was determined to punish Germany
Okay.
and ensure that they could never threaten France again.
Understandable, given what France had been through.
Right. And Lloyd George, representing Britain,
Yeah.
had to balance his desire for a stable Europe
Yeah.
with his own domestic political pressures.
So it was a complex situation.
Very complex, the negotiations were tough,
Yeah.
with compromises made and deals struck.
But the treaty that emerged,
Yeah.
particularly the Treaty of Versailles imposed on Germany, was deeply flawed.
It blamed Germany for the war,
Okay.
imposed crippling reparations. Yeah, stripped them of territory,
Yeah.
limited their military.
It was a peace dictated by the victors.
Yeah,
A peace that fueled resentment and instability in Germany.
exactly. And Rugar argues that the Treaty of Versailles,
Yeah.
while intended to prevent future wars,
Right.
might have actually made another conflict more likely.
How so?
It created the conditions for the rise of extremist movements like the Nazi Party,
Right.
who exploited the anger and humiliation felt by many Germans.
So the seeds of World War II were sown in the aftermath of World War I.
It's a tragic irony.
It is.
So as we look back on this pivotal moment in history,
Yeah.
what lessons can we draw from this devastating conflict?
That's the big question, isn't it? Could World War I have been prevented?
It's a question that historians continue to debate.
Right.
Some argue that the complex web of alliances, the arms race, the aggressive nationalism of the time
Yeah.
made war almost inevitable.
A perfect storm.
Others point to critical decisions made by leaders, moments where different choices could have led to a different outcome.
It's impossible to know for sure.
What's clear is that World War I wasn't just a clash of armies.
Right.
It was a clash of ideologies, of empires, of ways of thinking.
And its legacy continues to shape our world today.
The war accelerated technological advancements,
Yeah.
transformed societies.
Led to the rise of new ideologies like communism and fascism.
It also reshaped the political map of the world,
Yeah.
leading to the collapse of empires and the creation of new nation-states.
And it left a profound psychological scar.
It did.
A sense of disillusionment and a questioning of traditional values and beliefs.
It's a reminder of the fragility of peace,
Yeah.
the devastating consequences of unchecked nationalism and militarism.
The importance of diplomacy, dialogue, and understanding.
And with that thought-provoking note, we're going to wrap up our deep dive into the Great War. Thank you so much for joining us,
It's been a pleasure.
and we hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking.
Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those tough questions.